Learn to play Shadowdark, Part 4, Game Master. Your role. The Game Master. The Game Master is the world spinner, the all-wise, the ventriloquist. You are the deadly pit trap, and the assassin in the night. You are the storm. The army. The gods. You hold ultimate power. Yet you only want one thing. To see your players triumph. So, you craft malevolent villains worth defeating. You sculpt marvelous treasures worth stealing. You fill the world with rot, darkness, and death so it can be driven back by sword, spell, and flame. Through this, you offer an invitation. You propose it loudly with roaring dragons, humbly with helpless villagers, secretly with hidden treasure maps. You call the players to adventure. And they answer. The only rule. The only rule is that you make the rules. What's written in this book is a guide, not a constraint, and none of it takes precedence over your judgment. If something doesn't work at your table, change it or throw it out and don't look back. The Pact. You and your players are gaming together to have fun, prop each other up, and strengthen bonds. This is the Pact. The Pact is often unspoken and unseen, but it is always felt. It is based on goodwill, respect, and fellowship. Its enemies are selfishness, antagonism, and arrogance. Decisions made to defend the Pact are always good ones. The players. Adventure hooks. When you give adventure hooks to the characters, you're actually encouraging the players to grab onto those threads. While you can't expect your players to take every hook, you can make a call to adventure more enticing by knowing what your players want. Player motivations generally fall into the following categories. Powerful adventure hooks contain elements of all three. Reward. Players want more treasure and experience to make their characters stronger. Heroism. Players want to right wrongs, save the day, or make a name for their characters. This is especially true for players who love role-playing. Discovery. Much like solving a mystery, players want to know why a problem or location exists and what secrets it hides. The audience. The players are the real audience to the game's story, not the characters. Lean into this. For example, the players might be in great suspense because you just rolled a random encounter check in front of them. Similar to a horror movie where the audience watches a murderer slink toward the main character, the suspense comes from the players not knowing what is about to happen. Dramatic question. Most encounters have a simple yes or no question driving the interest. When that question is answered, the encounter is no longer exciting to the players, and it's time to move forward. Dramatic questions are not always obvious. The question for an encounter with a troll guarding a bridge is not whether the characters can kill the troll, but whether they can get across. Core ethos. These are Shadowdark role-playing games' core principles and foundations. Time. The most important resource. It must haunt the characters' every decision. They don't have time to search every floor tile for a trap. Darkness. Respect the darkness. It is the true foe. Few things can hold it at bay, and nothing must make those prized tools obsolete. Gear. Gear is precious and limited. Give value and utility to all of it. Action economy. A player character gets just one action per turn. Make it count. Use multitasking, page 88, for boring small stuff. Information. Dispense information freely. If the characters test the floor where there's a trap, they find it. Distance. Close, near, and far distances are loose and don't require precise measurement. Nobody wants to miss firing an arrow into a dragon's eye because of a mere 5-foot deficit. Danger. Casting spells comes with great risk. Magic items are volatile. Fights are fast and unfair. Monsters are insidious. Rewarding investment. Honor what has been earned. If a character learns a new language, make it matter. Allow new titles or iconic deeds to have an impact on the characters' lives. Stat checks. The characters automatically succeed at what they are trained to do. Only use stat checks when there is time pressure and failure has dire consequences. On balance. Be unpredictable. In this book, more than a few words are spent explaining the typical amount of treasure, page 117, or the average build of a monster, page 192. But typical and average adventuring is not the goal. These numbers are calibrations, so you know where to start. Use them to feel out the rudder of your game and know what makes something easy or hard. Then, become unpredictable. If the players think they can win every fight, they won't feel fear. They won't be careful. They won't use their wits. If all treasure is similar in value, there will be no epic trophies to pursue. No motivation. Instead, fill your world with stark dangers and stunning treasures. The most glorious victories are the hard-earned ones. Telegraph danger. When you remove predictability, you'll want to add a replacement ingredient, telegraphing danger. Don't make threats a secret, unless the players utterly failed to gather information. If the characters are getting close to a manticore's cave, describe the crushed skulls and bones, the reek of rotting meat, and the silence of the birds. Choices matter. A choice between two identical options, which door do you open, the one on the left or the right, is not actually a choice. Players need a way to gather information about their options and make an informed decision. That creates interesting choices. Careful players should be able to find the deep claw marks on one of the doors or catch the low snoring on the other side. Running the game. Adventures. An adventure is a set of related encounters and incidents that tie to a common plot thread. For example, the characters might go on an adventure to defeat the ruinous plague cultists hiding beneath the Temple of Krull. Devising an adventure requires the characters to have a problem or desire they can solve using their unique skills. These are usually tied to a person, location, or item. Often, there is time pressure driving the characters to act. See the Adventures section on page 122 for adventure ideas. Campaigns. Adventures that tie together into a series of related stories are a campaign. Sometimes, campaigns are centered around a plot or villain, and sometimes they grow out of the characters' explorations and deeds. Non-player characters. Non-player characters are rich sources of quests, treasure, danger, and motivation. Not all non-player characters need a backstory, but giving each a name, appearance, mannerism, and secret makes them into memorable personas. See non-player characters on page 124 and rival crawlers on page 126 for ideas and generation tables. The mundane. The characters transform from weak peasants into legendary heroes by adventuring. During that journey, the importance of basic gear, the fleeting nature of wealth, and the danger of a pack of armed bandits should never become mere trifles. Even a 10th level character's life should sometimes depend on whether a simple, mundane rope snaps or holds. Setting difficulty classes. The 4 standard difficulty classes. Easy 9. Normal 12. Hard 15. And Extreme 18. Are universal and help you quickly decide a difficulty class. When determining the difficulty of a task, take the creature into account. Finding a trail in a sunny field would be an easy task for a forest elf with tracking skills, but it would be a hard task for a sun-dazzled cave troll. When you ask players to make a check, state what kind of check it is. For example, an easy charisma check or a difficulty class 15 dexterity check. That way, the players know what they need to roll to succeed. Challenge variety. The characters should face a multitude of challenges during an adventure, including combat, dealing with non-player characters, or overcoming the environment. Each class excels at different tasks. Thieves love to scout and talk to non-player characters, fighters and priests shine in combat, and wizards dominate the environment. Character skill versus. Player skill. Characters aren't the only ones who level up. Players also gain experience. For example, players will learn where to look for secret doors and what the details are. As they go on more adventures, they become better at gameplay. Encourage this by giving players the opportunity to make decisions that rely on their creativity and wits, not on their dice rolls or stat bonuses. Rules versus rulings. If there were a rule for every situation, we would be living inside the rulebook instead of the game world. As the game master, you have infinite power with only a handful of rules. Stat checks and the standard difficulty classes can resolve any action. You need nothing more. Rather than pore through the book, adjudicate using what you already know. Make a ruling, roll the dice, and keep going. Not the enemy. Neutral arbiter. You're not the player's enemy, you're portraying the world as it is. Roll your dice out in the open and let the players create their own trouble. Shadowdark role-playing game has the following mechanics that tempt the players into taking risks. Random encounters. Characters push their luck the longer they linger in dangerous areas. Not all wandering monsters are hostile, see reaction check, page 113, but there's no guarantee. Light timers. If the characters run out of light, they have a poor chance of surviving a monster attack or deadly trap. Resource management. Gear slots are precious. Is it more important to make room for treasure or bring extra torches? Experiences. The temptation of treasure and experiences pulls many characters deeper into the dungeon. Character death. Character deaths will happen, especially among zero-level adventurers. The dice can be fickle, and crawlers sometimes get into more trouble than they can handle down in the Shadowdark. When a character dies due to the player's choices, and it makes sense, it was a just death. If there is uncertainty like, did you remember to add your constitution modifier to your death timer? Clarify the situation, and then let fate fall. A game world without death is one without risk or tension. Set the tone. The world. What is your game world like? Decide on a few major elements to start. You'll want to consider the following. What's the environment like? Jungle, desert, swamps, cityscape, oceanic, tundra? How does the world handle magic? Are wizards abundant, or in hiding? Can priests use healing spells? What's the overall theme? Grimdark, mythical, urban, gonzo, horror? The characters. Are there any character creation rules in your game world? For example, some game masters only allow lawful or neutral characters. Allow the player's ideas to shape reality. Is the priest from an order of witch-hunting zealots? Is the fighter a Red Siege veteran? Add those backstory elements to the game world. Session 0. Help the players make their characters ahead of the first session. This is an opportunity for the players to establish how their characters know each other, build out backstories, and roleplay precursory scenes. Start small. You don't have to develop much for your first game. You need a starting location, a few interesting non-player characters, and a short adventure site. Since the characters already know each other from Session 0, kick off the first game in the middle of a dangerous incident or dramatic situation. Bring on the action. Problems and rumors lead to adventures. If you keep introducing both to the characters, your world will continue to sprout and grow. Let there be darkness. Attack the light. A main source of time pressure in Shadowdark role-playing game is the limited duration of light sources. Don't let light sources be, set it and forget it. The characters must protect their light sources and keep them from going out. Here are some ideas for how to attack the light source. Imperil torches and lanterns on random encounter tables. Have enemies try to extinguish light sources. Have opposing spellcasters hit the target of light spells with dispel magic or other magic neutralizing effects. Have the environment put the light source at risk. Gusts of wind, dead magic zones, thin air, dripping cave ceilings, explosive gas, falling debris. Remember that dropping a torch or lantern might extinguish or break it. The light mishap table can be found on page 110. Modes of play. Mix and match these optional rules to create new challenges and gameplay styles. Blitz mode. Light timers last 30 minutes. Chaos mode. Reroll initiative at the start of every combat round. Deadly mode. Death timers are always 1. The difficulty check is 18 using the intelligence stat to stabilize dying. Fatality mode. Characters die at 0 hit points. Grinder mode. You only regain hit points equal to 1 roll of your hit points die and 1 stat damage per stat with each successful rest. Dwarves roll with advantage. Spellcasters choose 1d4 lost spells to regain after a successful rest. Hunter mode. Defeated monsters grant experience equal to half their level, round down. Momentum mode. You have advantage on checks to repeat an action you failed if you try the exact same action again on your next turn. Damage dice explode. If you roll maximum damage on a die, roll again and add it to the total. There is no cap. Pulp mode. There are no maximum luck tokens a player can have. Players start every session with 1 roll of a 4-sided dice worth of luck tokens. You can use a luck token to turn a hit into a critical hit. You can use a luck token to take an extra action. You can use a luck token to force the game modder to re-roll a roll. Random encounters. Purpose. Random encounters are a way to keep time pressure up. If the characters linger too long, they'll run the risk of more encounters. How often? The Game Master checks for random encounters during crawling rounds, not combat, based on the environment's danger level. If it's unsafe, check every 3 rounds. If it's risky, check every 2 rounds. If it's deadly, check every round. To check for a random encounter, the Game Master rolls 1 6-sided dice and an encounter occurs on a result of 1. The Game Master might also check for an encounter if the characters create a loud disturbance. For overland travel, check for random encounters based on hours and place of rounds. See page 90 for overland travel details. Starting distance. If 1 or more wandering creatures appear, roll a 6-sided dice for their distance from the group. On a 1 the starting distance is close. On a 2 to 4 starting distance is near. 5 to 6 the starting distance is far. What is it doing? When the characters encounter new creatures, roll to determine the creature's current activity. This might impact how likely they are to notice the characters. Roll 2 6-sided dice for the activity. On a 2 to 4. Hunting. On a 5 to 6. Eating. On a 7 to 8. Building or nesting. On a 9 to 10. Socializing or playing. 11. Guarding. 12. Sleeping. Reaction check. When the characters encounter random creatures, the Game Master rolls for the creature's attitude if it would not already be clear. If the characters immediately interact with the creatures to influence their attitude, one of the interacting characters may add their charisma modifier to the reaction check. The interacting characters reveal their presence and position to the creatures. Some vicious creatures, such as undead, are always hostile. The reaction table can be found on page 113, but the general rules are higher the result the friendlier it is. Treasure. There's a 50% chance a randomly encountered creature, or group of creatures, has no treasure. Decide as the Game Master or use the D6 decider. Traps. Traps add peril and surprise to crawling. Characters typically get to make a relevant stat check to avoid a trap's effects. A tell. Most traps should have a hint or tell. Be careful not to make traps too frequent or the game pace will suffer. Finding. Characters who search a specific area or object for a trap automatically find it. Disabling. Thieves and characters who are trained in tinkering can describe how they disable or circumvent a trap. If the character has enough time and uses a reasonable method, the character succeeds. If there is time pressure or the trap requires a great deal of skill to deactivate, the Game Master might call for a stat check. The traps table can be found on page 114. Hazards. Hazards add passive danger to the adventuring environment. There is often no way to defeat or permanently disable them. Unlike traps, most hazards are obvious from the start. Movement restriction. Some hazards inhibit or prevent movement, such as quicksand pools or slippery ice. Hazards can even fully entrap characters. Damage. Some hazards deal ongoing damage, such as toxic spores or acid rain. Weakening. Certain hazards weaken or hamper the characters. These could include anti-magic zones or vapors that sap physical strength. Combining. The most insidious hazards combine one or more of these types into a single threat. The table for hazards can be found on page 115. The Gauntlet. The Gauntlet. Game Masters can use a process called the Gauntlet to determine the player's starting characters. The Gauntlet works best when the players use the random generation process, see page 40, to create 4 zero-level characters each. Random generation prevents build tuning and over-investing in any single character, because the Gauntlet is deadly. The Gauntlet is much deadlier than a typical adventure. Most characters won't survive it. Zero-level player characters who fall to 0 hit points die instantly. Each player will end up with one peasant who makes it through the ordeal. Each player's active surviving character graduates to first level, gains a class, and becomes their character for future adventures. How to run it? The Gauntlet usually takes place in a well-established dungeon stocked with brutal traps, large groups of monsters, and evil plots drawing close to fruition. The monsters and traps aren't undefeatable, but many are likely to cause casualties. The Gauntlet can sometimes be comedic in its savagery, but not everything should be a death trap. Include enticing rewards that encourage risk-taking. Players each choose one of their zero-level characters to play at a time. Players replace dead characters from their backup pool and invent a fitting explanation. Reinforcements from town or a rescued prisoner. Total loss. If a player loses every zero-level character during the Gauntlet, that player can create 1 to 4 by rolling a 4-sided dice, more zero-level characters to pull from. Awarding experience points. Characters gain experience points from the valuable treasures and boons they earn during an adventure. Experience points awarded don't need to reflect monetary value. Boons or fabled items have intangible worth. Treasure has 4 categories: poor, normal, fabulous, and legendary. Poor treasure awards 0 experience points. It is mundane, low value, ordinary, and unexciting. Normal treasure awards 1 experience point. It is a good value, worth protecting, and useful. Fabulous treasure awards 3 experience points. It is incredible, prized, and well guarded. Legendary treasure awards 10 experience points. It is mythical, unique, and quest-worthy. Each player character gets the full experience value of each treasure. When player characters gains a new level, their experience points resets to 0. Sources of experience points can be from gold and gems, oaths, secrets, and blessings, magic items, meaningful trophies and tokens, clever thinking. Award 1 experience point for ingenious actions. How much gold? Over time, player characters will earn and lose gold through adventuring, carousing, and buying gear. Per treasure find, each group should gain about 10 gold pieces times their average party level in value, or 20 gold pieces in value for levels 0 to 3, 50 gold pieces in value for levels 4 to 6, 80 gold pieces in value for levels 7 to 9. Examples include treasure quality and their experience points. Examples can be found on page 117. Pages 118 to 139 is a series of roll tables to assist you with breathing life into your world, and has sections called Something Happens, Rumors, Adventures, Non-Player Character, Rival Crawlers, Shadowdark Maps, Overland Hex Maps, and Random Settlement and Encounter Generators. I hope you found this useful and have a great day.